She married me to destroy my life, but I played along until the end. The smile she gave me on our wedding day was radiant, almost blinding. Her eyes, a striking shade of blue, sparkled as she looked at me, a vision in white. Everyone commented on how lucky I was, how beautiful my bride was. And I played along, mirroring her smile, holding her hand. Because I knew, even as I said, I do, that her sole intention in marrying me was to utterly destroy my life. My name's Marcus Thorne, and I'm 45 now, but back then, on that sunny June afternoon, I was a wide-eyed 35, walking willingly into a meticulously laid trap. It started subtly, a few years before the wedding. I met Evelyn Hayes at a charity gala, one of those stuffy events my old business partner, Richard Vance, who was 48 at the time and always pushing me into social events, dragged me to. Evelyn was 33 then, a vision of elegance and grace, with a sharp wit and an even sharper mind. She ran a successful art gallery, specializing in contemporary pieces, and she moved through the room with an almost magnetic presence. We talked for hours that night, about art, about life, about everything and nothing. I was captivated. I, a software entrepreneur who lived and breathed code, found myself drawn into her world of vibrant colors and abstract forms. She was unlike anyone I'd ever met. My closest friend, Ben Carter, who was 35 and always pragmatic, warned me. She's too perfect, Marcus. Be careful. I brushed him off, blinded by what I thought was love. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Expensive dinners, impromptu weekend trips to quiet coastal towns, long nights spent talking under the stars. She seemed genuinely interested in my work, in my dreams, even in the mundane details of my life. She'd listen intently, her head tilted, her blue eyes fixed on mine. I fell hard, completely and utterly. My parents, Eleanor and Arthur Thorne, both in their early 70s, were thrilled. They adored Evelyn, saw her as the perfect match for their quiet, work-obsessed son. The proposal was grand, orchestrated perfectly on a moonlit beach. I dropped to one knee, the ring sparkling, and she said yes, her voice catching with what sounded like genuine emotion. I was on top of the world. I thought I had found my soulmate, my happily ever after. Then, a week before the wedding, the anonymous email arrived. The subject line was just, Evelyn Hayes. No sender name. My first instinct was to delete it, thinking it was spam or some disgruntled ex. But something made me open it. It was a single, cryptic sentence. She blames you for everything. My blood ran cold. Blames me for what? I racked my brain, trying to think of any past connection, any shared history with Evelyn that could lead to this. Nothing. I'd met her cold, so I thought. Then came a series of attachments. Documents, photos, newspaper clippings. They painted a devastating picture. Evelyn wasn't just an art gallerist, she was the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, a seemingly ordinary couple who had lost everything a decade ago due to a complicated, drawn-out lawsuit. The lawsuit involved a faulty software program, a system bug that had led to massive financial losses for their small manufacturing business. My company, my software. I scrolled through the documents, my stomach churning. The case had been settled out of court, quietly, years ago, long before I even knew Evelyn existed. It was handled by a legal team, and I had been assured everything was resolved. But the newspaper clippings detailed their subsequent bankruptcy, the loss of their home, their entire life savings. They had both died within a year of the settlement, from stress-related illnesses, according to their obituaries. And then, a personal letter. A scanned copy of a handwritten note from Evelyn to a friend, dated shortly after her parents' deaths. The words seared themselves into my brain. They took everything from my family. Especially that man, Marcus Thorne. I will make him pay. I will ruin him, just as he ruined us. The chilling clarity of it hit me like a physical blow. The charm, the effortless connection, the whirlwind romance, it was all a performance. A meticulous, years-long act of revenge. I was not her love, I was her target. For a few days, I was in a daze. I barely ate, barely slept. The wedding was a week away. Could I call it off? Expose her? But what proof did I have that would hold up against her carefully crafted facade? And how much would it destroy my own reputation, my family, if I publicly accused my future wife of a decade-old revenge plot based on an anonymous email? The thought of explaining this to my parents, to Ben and Richard, made me sick. They adored her. They would think I was insane. Then, a cold calm settled over me. She wanted to destroy my life. Fine, but I wouldn't make it easy for her. I would play along. I would give her what she wanted, but on my terms. I would watch her, learn her methods, and when the time was right, I would expose her, not just to protect myself, but to ensure she couldn't do this to anyone else. It was a dangerous gamble, but I felt a strange sense of clarity. So, I walked down that aisle, exchanged vows, and put a ring on her finger. I smiled at her, a knowing smile that she, of course, mistook for adoration. The wedding was beautiful, a grand affair Evelyn had meticulously planned, no doubt as part of her long game. My best man, Ben, gave a heartfelt speech about our enduring friendship, completely oblivious to the silent battle unfolding before him. Our marriage began as a quiet war. I watched her, every move, every subtle shift in her demeanor. She was a master manipulator, brilliant and terrifying. She slowly started to integrate herself into my business, subtly suggesting changes, introducing me to new opportunities that, upon closer inspection, seemed designed to slowly bleed my company dry. She encouraged lavish spending, extravagant vacations, expensive art purchases for her gallery that she'd insist I invest in. I went along, feigning naivety, letting her believe her plan was unfolding perfectly. My finance manager, Sarah Chen, 42, a sharp woman who had been with my company for years, started raising concerns. She saw the suspicious financial patterns, the dubious investments Evelyn was pushing. I had to carefully manage Sarah's suspicions, pretending to be oblivious to Evelyn's schemes, while secretly gathering information. It was a delicate dance, risking my reputation with Sarah, but I couldn't risk exposing my hand too early. Evelyn was incredibly patient, methodical. She didn't rush. She slowly eroded my assets, alienated some of my key business contacts with subtle undermining, and pushed me towards risky ventures that looked good on paper but had hidden flaws. She isolated me, subtly cutting me off from friends and family, making me reliant on her. My parents, now in their mid-70s, loved her more each day, seeing her as the perfect, caring daughter-in-law. It was sickening to watch. But I was also playing my own game. I started setting up ghost accounts, redirecting a portion of my company's profits, creating hidden reserves. I hired a private investigator, a retired detective named Frank Miller, 60, who was incredibly discreet. I fed him carefully selected information, allowing him to slowly uncover Evelyn's past, her connection to her parents' lawsuit, and her financial movements. It was agonizingly slow, but I needed irrefutable proof. I learned more about her. She had been adopted by a wealthy family after her parents died, but the resentment simmered beneath the surface. She was brilliant, yes, but also deeply damaged, consumed by a thirst for retribution. She was working with someone, a legal contact who had helped her dig into the old lawsuit, guiding her on how to exploit loopholes. The investigator eventually identified him as Daniel Cross, a disbarred lawyer, around 55, with a history of shady dealings. He was the architect behind her strategy. The emotional toll was immense. Living with someone who hated me, who was actively trying to ruin me, while pretending to be in love with her, was a constant psychological torture. Every touch, every kiss, every shared laugh felt like a betrayal of myself. I often wondered if I was losing my mind. My sleep was filled with nightmares. I couldn't confide in anyone, not even Ben, because the stakes were too high. The final phase of her plan became clear. She was pushing for a major investment in a shell company, ostensibly to expand her art gallery, but in reality, it was a funnel designed to siphon off the last significant portion of my wealth, leaving me financially ruined. This was her grand finale. I let her believe I was falling for it, feigning excitement, discussing the future she envisioned for us, a future built on my impending bankruptcy. But I was also working furiously with Sarah Chen and Frank Miller, meticulously documenting every transaction, every suspicious link to Daniel Cross. We built a case, ironclad and undeniable, detailing fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The day came for the final signing. We were in a fancy office, with lawyers and financial advisors present, all of whom Evelyn had carefully selected, believing them to be unwitting pawns. She looked triumphant, her blue eyes gleaming with a barely suppressed satisfaction. I could almost hear her inner monologue. Finally. Justice. I signed the papers. So did she. And then, just as she reached for her pen to sign the final, most damning document, I signaled Frank. He walked in, flanked by two other stern-faced individuals. They weren't police, not yet, but financial investigators, armed with warrants and a mountain of evidence. The color drained from Evelyn's face. Her triumphant smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock, then fury. She looked at me, her eyes burning with hatred. There was no more pretense, no more acting. Just raw, unmasked venom. You knew, she whispered, her voice trembling with rage. I just looked at her, my face calm, my voice steady. I knew everything, Evelyn. From the beginning, her carefully constructed world imploded. Daniel Cross, her co-conspirator, was also apprehended. The evidence against them was overwhelming. My finances were largely recovered, thanks to my foresight and Sarah Chen's brilliant work. The damage to my reputation was minimal. The narrative became that I was a victim who bravely exposed a sophisticated fraud. My parents were devastated, confused, but eventually understood. Ben was shocked but incredibly proud. The divorce was swift, brutal, but necessary. Evelyn was arrested, charged with multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. The last I heard, she was awaiting trial, facing significant prison time. I never saw her again after that day in the office. I didn't want to. My life wasn't destroyed. It was rebuilt, stronger, wiser, and infinitely more cautious. The experience left deep scars, a profound distrust, but also a strange sense of empowerment. I had faced my destruction head-on and emerged victorious. I still work in software, but I'm more grounded now. I spend more time with my family, with Ben. I've learned to truly appreciate genuine connection, the kind that doesn't hide behind a veil of vengeance. The memory of Evelyn, her radiant smile and her cold, calculated hatred, still haunts me sometimes. It's a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the most beautiful facades. I guess, in the end, she married me to destroy my life. But I played along until the very end, and in doing so, I not only saved myself but, in a twisted way, found a strength I never knew I possessed. It was a hell of a lesson, taught by a woman who truly hated me. And I'll never forget it.